Hello, everybody. From the Macroeconomics Unit, I've covered the circular flow of income and the business cycle. Now it's time to talk about aggregate demand and aggregate supply. And I'm going to start with the new classical model. And then in the future, I'm going to make the Keynesian model videos. So, first of all, this is what the new classical model looks like. All right. You have an aggregate demand curve that is negatively sloping. Think of this as the total expenditure in the economy. C plus I plus G plus X minus M. C is the household consumption expenditure. I is the investment expenditure. G is government expenditure. X is export revenue, which is foreign expenditure on our goods and services, minus M, this is import expenditure on foreign goods and services. Okay, and then you've got a positively sloping SRAS, short run aggregate supply. Think of this as the total income, okay, because in order to produce output, output is going to be using the factors of production: land, labor, capital, and enterprise. And each of those factors of production is basically going to earn wages or interest or rent or profit. So the total wages, interest, rent, and profit, all of the COPS, costs of production, basically, are what impact or what shift the SRES. Okay, and then you've got the vertical LRAS, long run aggregate supply. This is the economy's potential output. So this is the new classical / monetarist model. Short run equilibrium, and then there's a long run equilibrium. Let's talk about short run equilibrium. Short run equilibrium is the intersection of AD and SRAS. So where AD and SRAS meet, that's always the short run equilibrium. That's the economy's actual output. This is the output that the economy is actually producing. Long run equilibrium is basically the economy's potential output, or the economy's full employment level of output. YFE means full employment level of output. This is the output, Y, that is produced at the natural rate of unemployment, NRU. So when the unemployment rate is equal to the natural rate of unemployment, we say that there is full employment. The level of output that the economy is producing at the NRU is the full employment level of output. It's also the economy's potential output, YP. So if all three intersect, that means the economy is at equilibrium. It's at both short run and long run equilibrium. Okay? There is no tendency to change unless something shifts one of those curves. Now, let's look at situations where all three are not intersecting. So here are the situations where all three curves are not intersecting. You could either have an economy with a recessionary or a deflationary gap. Okay, this is when AD and SRAS intersect to the left of LRAS. You could have an economy with an inflationary gap. This is when AD and SRAS intersect to the right of the LRAS. And of course, we've already covered the third scenario, which is when all three intersect. So let's talk about recessionary versus inflationary gaps. We'll start with a recessionary gap. So when you have a recessionary gap, actual output is below potential output. You can see the actual output, YE, which is the intersection of AD and SRAS, is below the potential output. Okay, that means that the unemployment rate is higher than the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, because when there's a recessionary gap, there is cyclical unemployment as well as the natural unemployment, structural, frictional, and seasonal. So in a recessionary gap, the unemployment rate is higher than the natural rate of unemployment. AD and SRAS intersect at the left of the LRAS. So you can see here, what's happening is that AD and SRAS, total expenditure and total income, are intersecting below the economy's potential. The economy is producing below its potential output. There's a recessionary or a deflationary gap. That's another name for it. This occurs when AD shifts to the leftward. So I want you to imagine that there was an AD curve here, and then it shifted to the left. There was a decrease in AD. So remember, a decrease in AD creates a recessionary gap. Now, let's talk about inflationary gaps. This is when actual output is higher than the potential output. You can see YE is the economy's actual output. It's the intersection of AD and SRAS, and it's greater than the economy's potential or full employment level of output. This means that the unemployment rate is lower than the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, because the economy is producing beyond its potential output, some of those structurally, frictionally, and seasonally unemployed workers will have temporary jobs. The economy is overheating. Okay, there is a lower unemployment rate than the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, which means the unemployment rate is quite low. It's much lower than what we consider natural, which is basically frictional, seasonal, and structural unemployment. Okay. You can see AD and SRAS intersect to the right of LRAS, and this occurs when AD shifts to the right. Okay, I want you to imagine an AD curve here, and it shifted to the right, and that created an inflationary gap. Okay, so remember, a shift of AD to the right creates an inflationary gap. A shift of AD to the left creates a recessionary gap. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, please. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great one. Bye.